When I was a kid, we used to play a game called King of the Castle. Well, here, they played King of the Castle for real. We're going back to a date that every English-speaking school child knows, 1066. It's a round one question on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. The Battle of Hastings. It only lasted one day, but the Norman conquest of England lasted for many years after that event. Today we're going to the border of Bowdon and Dunham Massey in the historic county of Cheshire. It's now part of Greater Manchester, but perhaps for the purposes of today's video, we should call it the Kingdom of Mercia. When you think of England, one of the first things that come to mind is castles. It's not something you usually associate with Manchester though, but there were castles all over England's landscape during the Norman conquest. And just over here is the site of one of Greater Manchester's castles. Watch Hill Castle. It's the only scheduled ancient monument in Trafford. It doesn't look like much today, but you need to know what you're looking for. This was the site of a Motte and Bailey castle owned by Hacienda de Massey. Motte and Bailey castles were usually made of wood, so it's no surprise that nearly 1,000 years later there's not much left of it. I'm sure you know what a castle is, but what's a Motte and Bailey? Here it is, the Motte and Bailey Castle. It was introduced to this country by William the Conqueror. A Motte and Bailey castle was made up of two structures. A motte, a type of mound, often artificial, topped with a wooden or stone structure known as a keep, and at least one bailey, a fortified enclosure built next to the motte. So these nice even steps make it a little easier to get from the bowling up to where the bailey would have been, but now I would have been met by a palisade and probably people shooting arrows and stuff at me. So I think I'm dead. The first line of defense is the ditch or moat. Watch Hill has a natural ravine and river valley. They would have deepened and widened these as they saw fit and added extras where needed, and then put that soil on top of the motte to make it higher. The entire site is enclosed behind a huge fence called a palisade. They were usually around 12 to 14 feet high. There'd be some sort of gatehouse with a drawbridge that could be pulled up in the event of a siege. This bit with the houses and such is the bailey. This is where the support staff would be, you know, your butcher and baker and candlestick maker. Well, maybe. But they'd certainly need someone to make food and a smithy to fix and make weapons and tools. A chapel was a common thing inside a bailey. All the things needed for everyday life. We're on a raised triangular section of land here now. We're at the fat end of the triangle, and this would have been the bailey. On the other end, at the pointy end of the triangle, there would have been the motte. And on top of the motte, of course, is the tower with all the big guys stay there. But out here would have been the normal people. But there still would have been fortifications here. There would have been a ditch and a palisade. And in here, the normal people would stay and they would make provisions for the guys, the big guys in the castle, the keep on top of the motte. The next line of defense was the motte, an even higher piece of ground, like the bailey, surrounded by a moat and palisade, with another gatehouse and drawbridge. Finally, the castle or keep. Everybody could rush in here if they were attacked. Here they could mount a very strong defense. Yeah, and this is all swampy land here. You wouldn't want to cross that. You get across this and then you fight. Yeah. This countryside wouldn't have as many trees as it does today. What trees there were would have been used for the castle and the palisade. They needed a clear line of sight to the A56, the old Roman road where it crosses the River Bowdon. This castle would have guarded the river crossing of the road from Chester to Manchester. It was the entrance to the barony of Hacienda de Massey. Yeah, it's a long way down to the river. You can't really attack from this end. And on the other side, we have that swamp. So yeah, it's well defended. And there's a ditch here between the motte and the bailey. It's difficult to make out on camera. It doesn't look like an incredible height, but it is when you have to run up it and fight someone at the end. And you can see there's a depression here which probably would have been the entry with a drawbridge to enter the keep at the top of the motte. And over there is the green field where I was speaking about the bailey. Yeah, there's no way you're coming up here easily. So I just wanted to add this extra little note that I found recently about Hacienda de Massey, the first Hacienda de Massey. The name was passed down several generations. There were several Hacienda de Massey, but Hacienda de Massey the first was at the Battle of Hastings, and he lived from 1056 to 1101. And something that, you know, you kind of gloss over when you're reading history. It never occurred to me to do the math. That means he was 10 years old at the Battle of Hastings. These lands belonged to Hacienda de Massey. He took over from the Saxon Thane Aylward after 1066. Perhaps he was at the Battle of Hastings and given these lands by William the Conqueror. William was going to take all of England, and he gave land and territories to trusted men to own and defend in his name. Are you digging in that ancient scheduled monument? No, I was walking my dog and he went down this rabbit hole here. Yeah, that's it. That's the ticket. Yeah, and I reached in to get him and I found this coin. Yeah, that's the ticket. Yeah. There's never been a proper excavation of this site. A chance discovery in the early 19th century of a silver penny dated to the reign of Henry II was found in a rabbit hole on top of the motte. That could support a construction date. There was a rebellion of certain barons against Henry II in 1173 that included Hacienda de Massey. It may have been built during that conflict, or it may have been built earlier and still occupied during this period. The Church of St. Mary the Virgin in Bowdon. There's probably been a church here since the 7th century. The Domesday Book tells us that at the time there was a mill, a church, and a parish priest. In the year 1100, a stone church was built here in the Norman style. This effigy was uncovered from under a pillar in the nave when the church was rebuilt. The right arm across the body with the outline and point of his sword just visible may indicate he was a knight in service to the king. If it's not the Hacienda de Massey, it's likely one of his descendants. It's certainly one of his crew. The name of Hacienda de Massey was passed on to his descendants for several generations. Later, the name Bagley was adopted by the family, as it was the site of their main property. There were as many as 600 motte and bailey castles in England during the Norman Conquest. They were like the aircraft carriers of their day. William sent his men abroad and they would build these motte and bailey castles. From places like Watch Hill, they would send out the fighter jets, the cavalry. Men on horseback could patrol a 30-mile radius in a day. Daily patrols and hunting parties established the Norman presence. The Normans were saying, "We're here," and a domineering structure like a motte and bailey castle said it loudly. Most of the motte and bailey castles like Watch Hill have long since rotted away. Some were rebuilt in stone and became part of a bigger castle complex. Get out and check it out. It's a lovely spot, and although there's not much to see, now you know what to look for. If you want to learn more about this fascinating period of history, check out this book by Mark Morris, or any of his work. You can also find him on YouTube.
Bowdon, the River Bowdon.